Please be seated. Sorry, just one change. Good evening and welcome to the council meeting. I am Councillor Preeti Hud, the Mayor. In June 2017, 72 of our residents tragically lost their lives in the fire of Grenfell Tower. I ask every member of the council to pay our deepest and continuing respects in the conventional manner by marking the moment with 72 seconds silence now. Would everyone please stand? Thank you. The minutes of the previous meeting have been circulated. Where do I sign? Just sign. Just here. Okay, thank you. Does any member wish to declare a disclosable pecuniary or any other significant interest in any item being considered at tonight's meeting? Councillor Pascal.
Madam Mayor, I beg to offer the following, that I'll be speaking on one of the motions with an amendment to do with services to young children, and I'm a governor at 2 schools and also at a hospital trust, which may or may not be involved in those, but I have no pecuniary interest at all.
Thank you. Okay. There's a slight change in the order of, we will have the public speaking first. Public speaking. I will invite, oh, sorry, okay. Sorry, apologies. I shall now ask the Chief Executive to report apologies for absences or lateness for this meeting.
Thank you and good evening. I've received apologies from Councillors Benton, Graham, Issay, Jeddat, Marshall and Thaxter.
Madam Mayor, may I also include Councillor Lowry, who's running late. Councillor Lowry, 15 minutes late.
Thank you. Public speaking. I will now invite those who have registered in advance to speak to address the Council in turn for no more than 5 minutes each. A member of the leadership team and member of the principal minority party will then be able to respond for up to 2 minutes each. We have 8 people who have requested to speak. Therefore, I invite everyone to be as brief as possible. I will ask any speaker who reaches their 5 minutes to bring their address promptly to a close so as to ensure that all speakers have a fair and equal opportunity to be heard and to receive responses from all councillors.
She's not here, so it's him.
Okay, so we've got how many?
I've got the same number, but just invite him first and then a second.
Okay. I would now like to invite Mr. David O'Connell to ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the Council. I'm here to speak today about the increases in service charges across the borough and especially on our estate that have happened since March. One of the things the Council has said to us is that these are driven by the extraordinary increases in the costs of gas and electricity across the country, and I'm sure this is something that everyone knows. Our estate has 2 communal heating systems, which currently sit outside the restrictions on costs that the government has put in to help people. Yet the Council saw fit to pass on price rises of 220% and 160% on all of those services, which have forced up for many of our leaseholders and tenants. For tenants, it's meant an increase of 30% in the rent, and for leaseholders, there has been, some of them have had their service charges double in the space of a month. So we had meetings with the Council. This is a follow-up request because you came and met us and you said, oh, we've actually noticed that your estate, which is Lancaster West, happens to have the highest service charges in all of Kensington and Chelsea. Oops. So what they said is what we'll do is your boiler, which has been a temporary boiler since the fire, the Grenfell fire, we will reduce the cost of that to make it about the same as everyone else's. Now, one of the things I'd like to ask tonight is that A, are you going to follow through with those requests because you only made them in an informal meeting to us? B, will you carry on reducing the cost? And if that's the case, why didn't you think to reduce the cost last year when you removed all caps and benefits to the estate? Because fundamentally, our estate is still the scene of a national tragedy. And what it's still suffering, and according to your own report, which just published in March, is that there is very high levels of PTSD, trauma, and I find it astonishing that a council could think that it was okay to pass on the highest costs in the borough to people who in their own reports are suffering the most. I'm not asking for special pleading or any kind of treatment in a different way from the rest of the borough, because I think the way the council portray themselves as listening and different now can be proved to be true, because what you could have done is looked at different ways around passing these costs to people. What other boroughs have done is phased in the increases over 4 years. So instead of facing this cliff edge of huge cost increases at a time where everyone is pushed for money and everything is costing so much more, they're actually helping people. And one of the things you didn't talk about is the fact that the government are bringing in caps to try and control these cost increases across the country. But instead of thinking ahead and thinking, well, we're the richest borough pretty much in England, why don't we try and help our residents with some of those costs? You pass them on fully, unmediated to people. So I'm asking, first of all, is that the council could demonstrate some of this new listening culture they have and look again at how they have passed these costs on to all of the borough. And I would also ask that we look at Lancaster West and stop regarding us as just like another estate in Kensington and Chelsea. But remember, this is the scene of a disaster. This is the scene of a tragedy where 72 people lost their lives. My neighbours, friends and residents on my estate are still suffering the after effects of that. They are still trying to get their lives back together. So I think it's particularly cruel and unthinking just to pass on these costs to them. And the very fact that it didn't even occur to you that it would be a problem shows what was wrong in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you, David, for coming and asking your question. And obviously this is a matter I know you and I have discussed. We've discussed it privately, we've discussed it in public meetings, and obviously you're a member of the project board. So a lot of this we've already discussed, but I'm very happy to recap on this. And firstly, in terms of the informal discussions and the advice that we had at the last meeting, where we put forward a number of measures that we're doing to address this, I hope that that's now been followed up in writing. I'm looking at you as obviously you have yet to receive that, but it is something we're following up in writing to confirm what we discussed at the meeting. So I think it's fair to say, first of all, that it's not putting up costs is not something that we do lightly. The impact on the service charge, if you exclude the gas and the electrics from a one-bedroom flat, is 90p a week. And that reflects really the effort that we've done to try and minimise costs. The issue of the gas, you're absolutely right, it is a cliff edge. And it's a cliff edge because of the contract that we had as a council, which comes up on the 1st of April every year. And our overall gas cost has gone from 3.5 million to over £8.5 million. But we have put in place a range of measures which we've obviously write to you about. We've got a tenancy sustainment fund. You've already mentioned in terms of putting a cap on to equalise, recognising that they're old borrowers, and to ensure that that impact isn't felt. I think overall those measures account to about 35% of the overall cost, but there is still going to be a cost, and there has to be a cost because of fairness, because of the fairness of the housing revenue account, and every penny that's not spent on one estate is spent on to another state. And I think I just have to really stress that. But I do accept that these are issues that are going to create impact. As far as not just being another estate, you're absolutely right. We've given a commitment that we want it to be a 21st model estate. We're spending £120 million on the estate. That's £160,000 per home, more than anything reflecting that. We have, as you're aware, put a lot of concessions in the past, but we are not able to take the full cost of the increase, and I don't think it would be fair to our other residents to do so. But thank you for coming.
Would Councillor Simmons like to respond to that?
Thank you, David, for coming here today to raise this very important issue. As we know from the lead member, the pressures on the housing revenue account and the cost of service delivery do sometimes mean that some increase is unavoidable. However, it is unclear to me how the scale of some of the increases have been arrived at or justified, and what concerns me most is the impact of these increases on residents, including the mental health impacts, and in particular on Lancaster West Estate. It certainly is perverse. Lancaster West, the estate which contains Grenfell Tower, should have the highest service charges in the borough, and it's difficult to see really how this is in any way fair. I feel certain that the lead member understands the importance of honouring in practice the commitments he makes verbally to residents, and also that he is as committed as the leader is to the aspiration to be a fairer borough. As you know, this is a matter which I've already been raising with the council, and I will continue to do so. And I'm hopeful that the lead member will be willing, in the interests both of the residents and the council, to look at some more imaginative possible solutions to this issue going forwards, and I hope to have a conversation with him about that. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Mr. O'Connell. I would now like to invite Ms. Angela Birch to speak up to 5 minutes.
Hello, my name is Angie Birch. I'm here representing the parents of Fox Primary School. I'm here regarding a health and safety issue at the school related to traffic. We have had previous conversations with Kem Kalali and Catherine Fawkes on this issue. The situation is that we're now requesting that Fox School is, the gates are at the end of a cul-de-sac. Parents gather outside the school gates, but the paved area is insufficient for the school that has been extended, and the parents, there's not enough space for them, so they spill onto the street. Because it's a cul-de-sac, the cars are doing U-turns at the end of the street, and they've knocked over a pram, they've knocked over a tree, and what we're asking for is that we want an extension to the paving area. So we've been in conversations regarding this previously, but next door there's a school that was Hawksdown House that was empty, but it's now going to be populated in September by Wetherby Nursery. So there's going to be an extension in the number of parents waiting for small children outside in the same space. So what we're asking for is, as parents of Fox School, we would like to extend the paving. If funding is an issue, we are prepared to raise this money ourselves, so we would look to put like concrete plant pots and paint over half a parking space. And we're asking for your permission to do this, because we've been asking for a solution for around 2 years now and haven't managed to reach one. And we're just concerned about the health and safety of a small child being knocked over, because you can't really see small children when you're reversing due to their height.
Councillor Kamali, up to 2 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Angela, for coming to discuss this. As you've already mentioned, we have been on site to take a look. And something that I really reflected upon from that visit was that we have put in some new bollards, but in creating a larger build-out, we would simply be moving the problem further away. The real solution to this, I believe, is to embrace the school street policy that we have across the borough, and we've just launched another one at Thomas Jones recently. This would mean that there would be barriers right up on Ken Church Street that would prohibit vehicles from getting anywhere near both of these schools. We'd be really supportive to help you roll these out and make it work. But the proposal that was put forward around simply extending the build-out would just move the problem away. It doesn't stop the risk to children. We really do have to look at something like a school street to make sure that the vehicles can't get close to them. I'm really happy to, and the team would be very keen to implement another school street in KNC. So if that's something we could work on together, I'd be happy to meet with you again and go through that and bring one of our transport officers along as well.
So we spent a year ourselves as parents manning the street from the Ken Church end, and the problem is that there's also a garage on the street where the cars are coming in and out, and there's to deliver, and they need to do U-turns down the bottom of the street. So it wasn't really working with the parents manning the Ken Church end. So we feel like we have tested this out for over a year. It doesn't assist the health and safety at the end of the street where the cars are doing a U-turn and can't see the small children. So we would really like to extend that paving area to make it safe.
Ms. Birch, sorry to interrupt you.
Sorry.
Thank you. Councillor New to respond, up to 2 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Thank you, Angela, for coming this evening to the full council and raising very important issue, which is not only Fox School, but also other schools are involved.
Councillor New, sorry to interrupt you. May I please request that everybody speaks close to the microphones, please? So we can all hear you loudly and clearly. Thank you.
Yeah, Angela, thank you for coming this evening to the full council meeting and raising an important issue which affects our families, in particular children who are going to school. Pedestrian crossing is a major issue for a number of schools, including Fox School. I think after consultation, the borough has restrictions starting from 8:15 to 9 o'clock, and also 3 to 4. An extension of the pedestrian will be an ideal option, but I believe that will need consultation across the businesses, residents, which I've seen the consultation done back in 21, 22. There was a lot of objections on this option. But I can only, ask our children need to be safe when they're going to school and when they're going to be picked up. So I'll urge the lead member to meet again the parents of the school and also the school leadership to find a lasting solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Birch. I would now like to invite Ms. Kimia Zebihian to ask a question. Up to 5 minutes, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And yes, my name is Kimia Zabian, and I'm the advocate for Grenfell Next of Kin. And I'm here to talk about what's happening on Lancaster West Estate, because Lancaster West Estate is very important to, not only to the next of kin of those people who died in the tower, but also the residents. In fact, it's important to the whole nation. It is not an ordinary estate. Lancaster West Estate and its residents need protection and need extra care and compassion, not because of just the fire, but what led up to the fire. As you heard in the inquiry, much was made of the lack of oversight, scrutiny, accountability, decision-making, and competence of the council staff, officers, as well as the companies that were procured to carry out that refurbishment. So here we are in 2023, where the residents are facing that dreaded word, refurbishment, again. And once again, the council's commitment seems to be to what it wants to do, with a sort of rather patronizing, almost colonial attitude towards the residents, that we know what's good for you and we're going to push this through, and that the actual people that live there are once again being ignored and disrespected in the experiences that they're trying to bring to the fore. They are not being heard. When we ask the questions, we're given a whole bunch of statistics. 50% of the flats are already refurbed, there's 87% satisfaction, etc., etc. But behind this data, there's no questioning of where this data is actually coming from. And there is a sort of like a groupthink, a sort of bubble mentality that anyone that asks awkward questions is really the problem. What I want to know is, why is this council talking about change and a change of culture and change of attitude, and yet at the very heart of this disaster, which is of national consequence, it continues with the same culture that we know what we're doing and everything is fine, and when people are actually telling you that their lived experience of what's happening is very different to what you're telling them is happening, you ignore that. We heard yesterday at the COVID inquiry, or I don't know if it was yesterday or today, because I just saw the clip today, Sir Oliver Letwin, who was talking about the problem with the COVID response was that you have people in the room who are worried about their career development. They have a groupthink mentality. And so naturally, nobody really wants to be awkward. Nobody wants to ask the awkward questions, the what if, the whys. You simply don't have that, because you have a management organization down there on the estate, which is basically doing whatever it wants to do with no accountability, feeding you the data and the version of its reality, and you're buying into that. And when the residents are telling you it's very different, you're ignoring that. And I think that's really a shame for this council. And it's a shame that this country is not willing to really watch anymore. The Lancaster West Estate matters to every single housing estate up and down this country. What happens there sets the precedent. So stop talking about the model 21st century and start talking to the residents, because what they feel right now is they're going to be priced out of that estate. You have received £120 million plus to do up your council stock, your social housing stock on that estate. You're going to put these people through another God knows how many years of difficulty. They've already had nearly 15 years of it, first with the building of the KAA, the KAA building, the leisure centre, then the refurb of the tower, then the fire, and then the post-fire, now the Lancaster West Estate refurb, and then we're going to have the whole kit and caboodle with the memorial and the demolition or partial demolition of the tower. This is literally 20, 30 years worth of lives on this estate who are putting up with all this disruption. And if your response is a couple of statistics that have come from your own people to justify what you're doing, then you haven't changed at all. You need to do better. Those people need proper care and compassion, and they need to be listened to. And you cannot keep putting their service charges up while they're going through this, and then eventually they can't afford to pay the prices, the service charges anyway. So what used to be called regeneration or managed decline is now being called refurbishment. That's the new word, it seems, for actually pushing people out of their estate and off their area.
Ms. Zabian, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Taylor-Smith, please.
So, thank you, Kimia, for coming, and thank you for attending the last meeting. So, Lancaster West, I mean, there was quite a lot that you've talked about. I mean, let's first talk about statistics. I mean, because I am not an advocate of using statistics from a self-congratulatory point of view. We have independent surveys done purely to listen to what residents, previously under the TMO, they used to do it themselves and have 90%. The London statistics that have just been published shows us with an approval rating of 61%. Now, I think that's appalling, 61%. It's good in as much that it's gone up 7% and the rest of London has gone down and the national average is 60%. But still, as a council, in terms of wanting to provide services to our residents and listening to our residents, there's still a long way to go. So the first thing I'd say, if I wouldn't want to give the impression that we're somehow sitting back on our laurels on these statistics at all. I think in terms of care and compassion, we have set up a system within Lancaster West. It is unique. It's completely different to if you live across the road in Silchester or anything else, but we have set up, we use this, coin this word, model 21st century, and we've done it on the basis of having a management team on there, which includes a lot of residents themselves in terms of the work. And I think it's fantastic when I go there and I meet residents who've trained and are now electricians, and that has come from working with people. So we are trying to work very closely and live. It's taken us 6 years, and we're still nowhere near, embarking on the major parts of the project. And the reason why it has taken 6 years, and I'm not using this as a complaint, is that because we have spoken to our residents everywhere along the way. That's the one lesson we did listen, as far as Grenfell is concerned, is listening to what residents and doing what residents want. And if you talk to residents in the block, you look at the designs of those blocks and you ask them, it's the residents that have chosen the windows and the cladding and all the work we're doing. I think we have to acknowledge the biggest problem that we have on that estate is, first of all, money, the impact of things like the gas charges, and we talked about that with David a little bit earlier, and what we're trying to do to address that. The other thing which we can't get away with is the disruption. I mean, I'm there talking to residents, and they're telling me how brilliant the noise cancelling headphones are to stop the noise going that bit, but it's outrageous because they've still got the banging going on, and they're going to have banging for a lot of times. We will try and help that in terms of respite, quiet centres, etc., but there is going to be
Councillor Taylor-Smith, thank you so much.
Sorry
to interrupt you. Thank you.
I do apologise, but thank you.
Your microphone is not on.
61% satisfaction rating, you're talking about an independent survey across the whole borough.
Thank you,
We're not
Ms.
talking
Zabian.
about the whole borough, we're talking about that area. And when you're talking about choices, you're asking people to make these
Ms. Zabian,
choices
I'm
in
so sorry.
2018, when they were just a year after the disaster. The building was still uncovered. So I
Ms. Zabian,
just
I
think
am
it's
so
a little
sorry.
disingenuous.
I do need to interrupt you.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
My apologies. I know.
I think it's a really big deal, and we never seem to get
I
cut
do understand.
through. Yeah.
I do understand. My apologies
Thank
to
you.
interrupt you. Thank you. Councillor Simmons, please. 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Kimia, for coming to speak on behalf of the next of kin. As we know, this refurbishment is a huge and complex undertaking by the Council. Thank you also for raising the point, which I've also raised previously, about the seemingly unending building works imposed upon the residents of Lancaster West and Nottingdale. 20 years, 30 years. In reference to your written question, as Ward Councillor for Nottingdale and Chair of Housing and Community Select Committee, I too would welcome the transparency and clarity which it is understandable that any resident may seek, because of the significant and fundamental impacts of this work on residents' homes and their lives, not least the ongoing daily noise and disruption that residents are currently reporting to me, and the need to ensure the success of this project and its benefits to the residents of Lancaster West Estate who have already suffered so much for so long. It is absolutely vital that the Council listens to the voices of all the residents of Lancaster West Estate. It doesn't pick and choose. I hope that the Deputy Leader is able to hear as well as listen, and I look forward to hopefully seeing some constructive and productive conversations going forward about this really difficult issue. The proceedings of the Programme Board as regards the refurbishment are perhaps not the most accessible, so I thank you for raising this so courageously, and please rest assured I will be making inquiries to ensure that residents and council members have the transparency and clarity on this, and I'll be discussing also with the Housing and Communities Select Committee going forward. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Ms. Zabian. I would now like to read out a question on behalf of Mr. Fabian Frenzel. School streets such as the one where I volunteer at Thomas Jones Primary School are a vital road safety and air quality measure. I would like to ask why the Council seems to be not willing to support the scheme and the volunteers who close the road to motor traffic with ANPR enforcement. As volunteers, we could really appreciate such enforcement. Could the Highways team please detail whether any, and if yes, how many, fines have been issued to drivers violating school street restrictions in the borough so far? Councillor Kamali, please to respond for 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Fabian, for your question. And thank you also for being a volunteer at Thomas Jones Primary. As we heard earlier tonight, our wonderful success with school streets, it's great to hear that you're manning the gates every morning. One of the benefits of a school street with a barrier is that it does prohibit the vehicle from getting down the road. An ANPR system is merely a camera, so it will issue a ticket to the car, but it won't stop that car from causing damage to a child or to bumping into a child or causing harm to adults, parents, children, etc. on the road. We want to make sure that there are no accidents on our roads, and cameras don't necessarily stop the accident, they merely issue a ticket after the fact. So we will continue to press for there to be manned barriers at our school streets. We will continue to work to have more school streets, and hopefully Fox Primary will be the next on that list. But also just again to say thank you for doing the work you do. I know it can be tough in the middle of December or January when it's not very pleasant out there, but it is really for the protection of our young residents, so please do continue doing so. Thank you.
Councillor New to respond for 2 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I can only thank Fabian for raising this question. I've been to the school this week, Monday, and yesterday, both early in the morning and 3 o'clock, and I've witnessed the issue which has been raised here. Naturally, that road is very small, and the issue with the cars are not only Monday to Friday, it also over the weekend. The borough consulted local residents, including the parents. There was overwhelming support for the controlled hours. The issue at the moment is it done by volunteers who also has to go to work. And without that physical barrier, the cars will be coming in from different directions. when I spoke to some of the parents and I said, what do you see as a solution? They say, number one, either it needs to be reinforced by putting camera, and I think the borough need to do that if it has to be done. Second, the whole road to be closed, because it's a very small road from the school to Lancaster Road and the other side. Or the borough provides the resources to control those hours, 8:15 to 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock, instead of relying to volunteers who may not be available every day of the week. Thank you.
May I thank you both on behalf of Mr. Frenzel. I would now like to invite Mr. John Weir to ask a question. Mr. Weir, up to 5 minutes, please.
I am the GMB Union's full-time trade union officer for Kensington and Chelsea, and I'd like to start by thanking you for giving me the opportunity to speak at this council meeting. There are two sides to every story, and in regards to the strike of parking enforcers in your borough, I want to give our members' side of the story directly to you. The job our members do is not an easy one. They face abuse on a daily basis, and due to the profile of the workforce, this abuse is often racist in its nature. They go out in all weather, and according to the council's own reports, they perform to an extremely high standard. This is a massive revenue-generating operation for the council. To give an idea, if a parking enforcer hands out 10 tickets in a day, which is the standard, this provides approximately £600 in revenue to the council. That's more than 5 times what they earn at their current rate. In terms of the nature of the work, the quality of the work, the profitability of the work, there is no case to be made that this workforce does not provide value for money. They deserve to be treated fairly. This afternoon, our members voted overwhelmingly to reject an offer from your contractor to pay £13.50 per hour. This base rate is less than the amount the exact same company pays for exactly the same work in comparable boroughs like Wandsworth, where they earn £14.10, and Westminster, who pay £14.50. You may say that these are different contracts with different terms and conditions, but this is exactly what is in dispute. Over £14 per hour is what has become the standard rate for comparable boroughs. If there's not enough money in NSL's contract for what has now become the standard rate, then why not? Is it because NSL's staff in RBKC have earned more than other boroughs over the last few years? The answer is the exact opposite. NSL staff in RBKC have been underpaid, not only compared to Westminster and Wandsworth, but also Barnet, Camden, and even Surrey. NSL cannot underpay staff in RBKC for years and then use the excuse that our demands require too large a jump in pay, when the reason for the jump in pay is because they have underpaid for years. The Council's own key decision report of the 29th of March accepts that staff here are underpaid compared to other boroughs, and that as a result, there are issues with recruitment, retention, and fulfilling the contracted hours in the contract. We are almost there in terms of resolving this strike, but it's an insult to our members' dignity to ask them to continue being the poor relation of other London boroughs that use NSL for their parking services. It's up to you whether you choose to increase the pressure on your contractor to increase pay before the contract extension is finalised, or whether you increase the funding yourselves. Our members have proven their resolve. Today is day 13 of a strike that cost the council up to £50,000 per day in lost revenue, with further strikes next week and the week after. In any industrial dispute, there are two options. There's the option to look tough, or there's the option to be smart. GMB members employed by NSL Limited are losing money while they're on strike. RBKC is losing revenue while they're on strike. The only party not being penalised in this dispute are your contractor, NSL Limited. So I'm asking the council to be smart and help us both resolve this dispute. Thank you.
The next question covers the same topic. So now I invite Mr. Martinez Isayevas to ask the same question up to 5 minutes, please.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for opportunity to speak here in front of all of you. My name is Martin, and I'm one of the 4 GMB representatives in this borough regarding civil enforcement officers employed by NSL. And firstly, I would like to address all of you not as just people who are running this borough, but also as people who will come back home this evening, park their car, and go back to their families. What happens if you can't find a space to park your car? Then you obviously remember parking enforcement officers, or as you call them, parking wardens. I think this is unfair that people only remembers these people when they can't find a space to park their car, right? These people are coming to work every day, and job is not easy, as Mr. John mentioned before. They're working on all conditions, including weather, or even the deadly pandemic that we had before. And they're working 24/7. 24/7, we have people who are making sure that the cars are parked correctly. Because one illegally parked car that is unenforced can cause huge disruptions and affect hundreds of people, residents of this borough. And I think all of you sitting here, you are for the people. I think, as mentioned before, the council loses up to £50,000 a day because of the strike action. And now is the day 13. So it means the council already lost about £650,000. And we're asking less than half of this money a year to end this dispute. The council can say, yeah, we're not responsible for that. That's a contractor's problem. We're just giving the contract, and it's their concern whether they want to increase the money or not. But I think the council should take stricter actions towards the NSL. For example, including conditions into a contract, such as penalties for undeployed staff, for unenforced areas, for example, trucks that have been late to pick up the car because it was parked illegally. Checks, day-to-day control, and more frequent revisions. I think these things would put the company into the frame, where they would feel controlled. Because now we see that the company doesn't want to communicate, and they're just dropping everything, all the responsibility on the council. And what the council says, talk to the company. So these guys who are here at the moment, not all of them, but some of them, other people are watching this full council's meeting at home on their mobile phones. These people are in the middle between the council and the company. And I think the council should help these people to solve this problem. Because just moments ago, they overwhelmingly rejected the offer by the NSL, which was not what these people expected, not what these people need to cover all the expenses that are raising by the day. And I think this borough is called Royal Borough not without reason, right? This borough is a Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, and it should be a borough that is being followed by other boroughs all around the world. It's one of the famous boroughs, one of the most famous boroughs in the world. and they're giving the weight to their neighbor boroughs like Westminster, Wandsworth, and I think it shouldn't be like that. I think these people, and I don't think I know that these people who are showing the strength for the last 13 days, they will not stop until they get what they need. And the council will still keep losing money. And this is bad for us because my colleagues, my friends, they're losing money. Me personally, I'm losing money. And the council is losing money. And I think we have to work together to find a solution for this.
Thank you, Mr. Yeseras. Thank you. Before I invite members to respond, may I just remind the Chamber that exempt information, Part B items, may not be discussed in an open meeting. Councillor Kamali, for you to respond up to 4 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, John, and thank you, Martin. And actually, you know what, thank you all for all the work you do in Kensington Circus. And I'm sorry you have to be here tonight, to be honest, because I've come out with you around the borough. I know just what a fantastic job you do. I know the difficulties that you have with, nobody wants to get a parking ticket, right? That's perfectly normal. And the way you manage those interactions and your ability to engage with our residents and our visitors is absolutely fantastic. So thank you again. I'm really sorry we're having to have this debate. And obviously, it is a debate between entities and corporate structures. I've heard tonight, this is the first I've heard about the result of that ballot. I'm sorry we haven't been able to close this today. Obviously, this means we have to keep talking. NSL will have to continue to have this discussion with yourselves. And I hope we can resolve this as quickly as possible because, as you say, you're losing money, you're all losing money, and indeed, the council's losing money, which means we don't have the money to spend on our residents. So please, let's try and get this resolved. I don't think strikes are the right way to solve this. Let's just get it sorted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Bakhtir to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. John and Martinez, thank you very much for coming and organizing this, leading and organizing these guys to fight for their rights. The Labour Group, I have brought this to the Labour Group's attention, and we have called for an extraordinary council meeting, and the request was submitted 5 days ago, but we are still waiting for a response because to us this is an important matter. The reason is because the contract is under review. It's ending early July. So all members on the chamber should be aware of what's going on. Until recently, I didn't know, honestly, I didn't know that these guys are getting paid less than £12 an hour. This less than £100 a day, 96 or 97 pounds a day for wandering around for 8-9 hours a day, keeping control and bringing order to our streets and roads, being challenged and sometimes spat at, and people use abusive words against them, and they are getting paid this much. And I have been asking them, because I've been going out with them, each one of them is issuing an average of 15 tickets a day. If you calculate it, they are bringing in nearly £1,000 a day, but they are taking home £96 a day. Is this fair? There's nothing to do about Labour or Conservative, nothing to do with parties. The moment I became involved, I thought this shouldn't be going on. And we should bring this to the chamber and we should talk about it. This is every single one's responsibility. We shouldn't allow this to continue. They are bringing revenue. They are bringing tens of millions a year to all councils a year. And we are spending these revenues on other services in the council. So I would urge that just the lead member, every single lead member and the leader to review this very carefully, because the council is vicariously responsible of the company, what the company is doing. We shouldn't allow this to continue.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I believe your colleague, Councillor Ali, wants to speak. Councillor Ali, 2 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. May I also thank Martinez and John for coming this say that again. We're still within the time. Yes, please. Just in case your maths doesn't work. Madam Mayor, you're right. We are within our time, and I can respond to that.
2 minutes.
Thank you very
Please,
much.
thank you.
Just to let them know this is how it works, so that they get on finally. Thank you very much, Madam. I will
Sorry,
not, I will not claim any minutes from that, but if they allow me to continue, I would appreciate. Well, I'm within my time. John.
I will
John,
I will allow it this time.
Martinez,
Please,
thank you
thank
very
you.
much. Thank you very much for coming this evening. And it's not the first time we've met. I've met with you at the Bickett line. I was there with you the last strike. You were not supposed to be there. You should be at work. Members who are here today, staff members, they should be at work. I've also met them in Delgado Ward. And may I tell you now, I think it's about time this leadership to take the decision that's necessary. We may be clapping for you, all of us, but the point is, what you are here for is to make sure that you get a fair pay, not just clapping. And I hope the lead member will take that on board, unlike the leadership we have seen before. I hope that he will be succeeding and he will get the decision that will be working for you all. I have met with the leader of the council, I've met with the chief executive about specifically this issue. My solution is simple to this, and I hope the council will take the leadership. If they cannot pay you right, I think we should have you in-house and directly employed by the council, and that will be the fair pay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Weir and everyone else. I would now like to invite Mr. Ron Forrest to ask a question. Up to 5 minutes, please, sir.
You don't have to go too close. Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Councillors. Thank you for the opportunity of speaking to you tonight. I want to address you and draw your attention to two matters in relation to a planning application that's in for 81 to 103 Kings Road. This, of course, is currently occupied by Marks and Spencer. First of all, I'd like to thank our ward councillors, Elizabeth Campbell, Emma Will and Shem Kamali for making a site visit, and the same to the planning committee led by James Husband, and the officials are led by Amanda Reid. The two issues really come down to, the first is the date of the planning committee review of this application. Many of the local residents associations, and I should explain, I'm the chairman of the Charles II Place Residents Association, but I'm here tonight speaking to you on behalf of a consortium of resident associations. 12 have got together to pool their resources and make sure they speak with one voice. And the issues that we want to raise tonight are that there are many missing documents from this planning application. There are also a number of misleading documents and illustrations, and many of the statements in the application are incorrect. These have all been raised with the council, but we want to be sure that there won't be a planning committee meeting until all these issues have been resolved and the information supplied. Now, this may be moot, but we understood there was an intention to try to bring this application to the July planning meeting, and we asked that it is just too soon, and also it's during a holiday period, and that it should be delayed till at the very least September, or preferably when all the information has been supplied. The second issue I wanted to just mention to you is that, some of you I'm sure are aware, but I wanted to draw everybody's attention to the fact that Markham Street Residents Association organised a petition by setting up a stall on the King's Road and gathered over 4,200 signatures in opposition to this development. Both the London and the RBKC planning policies make it clear that building of this size, height and mass should not be allowed. But we understand from listening to some of the planning officials that they believe that this is an issue that is subjective. And my question to you is that why should the subjective opinion of a planning official outweigh the subjective opinions of about 4,200 of your voting constituents?
Councillor Kamali to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Ron, for coming tonight. I know we had a bit of difficulty in getting the petition here itself. I understand there's an issue with sort of governance around that. I'm also glad that the members of the Planning Committee were able to visit you and see, like we have, with their own eyes, just exactly what the submission, if it were to be approved, would mean for yourself and for your neighbours. We're fully aware of the strength of feeling. We're certainly we've received numbers of emails, and we have tried very hard to work with the developers and try and engage with them to make sure that they take the community with them if they are determined to push ahead with this application. But the application itself does have to follow a statutory process. As you've already remarked on, it will go to the Planning Committee. I can assure you, though, tonight that if the remaining documents that are required, if they are received, we will run again a consultation so that residents are able to respond properly to that, and we'll make sure that you have the time. That will, of course, mean that we're completely unable to aim for a sort of a July committee date. So I can really commit to you that it will absolutely be at the earliest in September, but of course it will be dependent on whether or not those documents have all been received, have been consulted upon, and have received due comment from residents and associated RAs as well. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you. Can I just make one point of clarification that I may have missed, which is that I do want to emphasise that the objections that the resident associations are raising is not to try and keep Marks and Spencer on the King's Road. Everyone fully understands that that they don't own the building. This is the owner of the building. What people are objecting to is the size, the height, the mass of this building, which is going to change the whole culture and environment of the King's Road.
Thank you.
Councillor Early to respond for 2 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. May I also thank Ron for coming this evening and joining us, and on behalf of the 4,000 plus constituents of ours who absolutely make their point that this should never happen if everything has not been considered. And I think as someone who sits in the planning, although this could well be the major planning part of it, but it's no secret that I always ask for all the details, relevant details, to be provided to us so that we make the right decision. No councillor or any, for that matter, anyone in decision-making point can actually make a decision on something that will affect or impact residents' lives without having all the necessary. So I totally agree with you. And if I speak as the leader of the Labour group, we're more than happy to meet with you and to work with the residents, the south of the borough and King's Road in the area, to make sure that your voices are heard. And if there was a time that we can meet with you and consult and make sure that everyone, every constituent, whether it's 4,000 or 5,000 or 10,000, or even one constituent, will be heard under my leadership as the Labour leader. Well, many thanks for coming again.
Thank you, Mr. Forrest.
Okay. Welcome to stay.
Now I would like to go back to item number 3.
Madam Mayor, could you very kindly, I know Mr. Mohammed isn't here, but if you have his question, could you read it? Or even if not, allow a response, because we have responses prepared, and I think it would be courteous to allow members to respond to the very pressing issue.
Of course, apologies. What actions and measures have been put in place to help Sudanese British citizens evacuees in RBKC? Councillor Taylor-Smith to respond, please.
Yeah, and do thank Mr. Mohammed in his absence. So a really important question. First of all, just start, as a borough, I think we've got a really proud history of supporting those fleeing their own country. We provide support, we provide access to service while their status is being confirmed. So the main responsibility for the assisting the Sudanese is with the government. And unlike the Afghan and Ukrainian refugees who welcomed, the government has not yet announced a bespoke support officer. So that being said, the government has announced that UK nationals, Irish nationals and those with Home Office leave, which provides recourse to public funds, who left Sudan as a result of the violence, will be exempt from the residency tests and able to access benefits and services faster within the UK. So under this scheme, we're currently assisting 10 households for housing. Bearing in mind we already have housing pressures anyway, 7 has gone into provided into accommodation, 3 have made their own arrangements, and for children arriving we identify school placements and wrap support around the families as part of our early help offer, and we've been developing with this with contingency hotels supporting refugees all over. So of course, should the government provide us with financial support in the same way that they do for the Afghans and the Ukrainians, we'll very much look to expand that support. But thank you for the question.
Councillor Adam to respond for 2 minutes, please.
Hi. I'm not quite sure whether Councillor Kim aware about, up to now, the government hasn't pronounced any plan for Sudanese flee their country, or British Sudanese, according to Ukraine scheme. We're still fighting for that. And really, I feel ashamed being a member of this council. Because as a council, I've got support from, and they support my people, Westminster Council, Oxford Council, Lambeth Council, Birmingham Council, even Brent Council. I emailed myself, all the councillors here, about the situation for people arrived to UK. I received no response. I emailed the leader of the council on 15th of May. I haven't received a response from her. What the council can help, we send a plan. We need accommodation, food, education, social service to interfere, but nothing. I have many cases declined when they apply to RBKC. I think we need a truce. I don't know where misleading Kim or gap between him and his staff or other councillors. We need action, because really, shame on this council. I feel really ashamed.
May I thank you both on behalf of Mr. Mohammed. Now, returning to item number 3, special announcements. It is with sadness that I report the death of the 8th Earl Cadogan, a freeman of the borough. My condolences to Lady Cadogan and Viscount Chelsea, their son, for their loss. Would any members like to say a few words? Councillor Campbell, Councillor Hargreaves, Councillor Lindsay and Councillor Gardiner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Charles Cadogan was a great landowner, he was a member of the Jockey Club, he was a horse racing aficionado, he was a businessman, soldier, aristocrat, director, past chairman of Chelsea Football Club, and of course he was the honorary freeman of this borough. But Madam Mayor, he was much more than that. I think, we in Chelsea know what he was. He was what a great man he was. And he was also a great man with a great heart. He invested hugely in Chelsea. We've seen Pavilion Road, Duke of York's, Cadogan Hall, all these things flourishing over the last few years. And in the next few years, we've got a cinema opening, a bar opening, and the Old Heels in King's Road. We've got massive investment in Sloane Street. I mean, he really, really thought about the area. And at the same time investing in the area, he invested in the people. He appointed to the 5 livings of our churches, and he was always supported the community and people who were doing public service. And I remember both his 80th birthday and his 85th birthday. His 80th birthday was celebrated in Holy Trinity Sloane Square. His 85th was St. Luke's, Chelsea. And it wasn't just for his friends and his family. It was literally everyone was there. Whether you were a traffic warden or you were a teacher or you were a social worker, the whole community was invited and everyone was invited to celebrate afterwards. And I think there's one small story which sort of sums him up for me. Well, because not only does he have a lot of grace and favour flats in Chelsea, so if you're some of our retired clergymen, you can retire in Chelsea. He keeps the rents frozen for elderly people. I mean, they've got such a tradition of really caring about the community. And as I said, one very small anecdote. Some people in Caversham Street, and they were two elderly spinsters approaching their 90th birthday. And the chair of the Residents Association asked whether that they could be, it'd be nice just to have a card on their birthday. And you know, they sent them 2 huge bouquets of flowers with a signed note. And you know, he didn't have to do that, but that's what he did. That was the type of man he was. So he will be missed hugely. And I'd just like to say, Charles Cadogan was a very good man. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, thank you very much indeed. And like many people in this chamber and the wider community, I was very saddened to hear the death of Earl Cadogan. And I'm sure he'll be missed greatly by his family, colleagues and the wider Chelsea community. And in many ways, Lord Cadogan was a man for all seasons. Family man, businessman, public servant and philanthropist. Family man as head of the Cadogan family. Businessman as long-term chairman of the Cadogan estate. And we've heard tonight of the great work he did of the examples of Duke of York Square, the Saatchi Gallery, and the purchase of the Cadogan Hall, which at the time many people thought was mad, but that has now become a very well-known and respected music venue and concert hall. But it's a public servant and philanthropist that I just want to talk about and say a few words about tonight. And I think I appreciated the importance of this role to him when he made a very moving acceptance speech on being granted the freedom of the borough in 2015. And some of us were in the chamber when we heard that speech. And during that speech, he mentioned with feeling his immense pride at following in the footsteps of his father and being awarded the freedom, and how important this role he took for his family, not just for him, but for the line of his family. And what I sensed was not just a duty, but a real honour and a real privilege that he believed he had to carry out as part of his role. And the leader has just mentioned on one example that I think, as patron of the 5 churches in Chelsea, the patron of churches is a very old traditional role. And most churches now don't have a patron in the same way as those churches in Chelsea does. And I think when we look at the importance that he put on that, on being very involved in the recruitment of the vicars, being very involved in the upkeep of those churches, helping to pay for new organs, helping to pay for restoration work, and the welfare, we said, of the clergy, not just those working, but those retired as well. And that is just one example, of which there are many, of the way he took his role, not just as a businessman, but also as that sort of grand figure of Chelsea, and indeed his support for philanthropy. So I send my condolences to his wife, Lady Dorothy, his son Edward, now the 9th Earl of Cadogan, and the rest of his family. And Madam Mayor, in marking the passing of Lord Cadogan, we give thanks for a life well lived, and may he rest in peace. Thank you.
Sir Lindsay.
Madam Mayor, I want briefly to say that Charles Cadogan's stewardship of Chelsea is to be commended. He cared passionately about Chelsea in a way that some other landlords in London did not, and his investment, as we know, in Duke of York Square, but in many other places, as cited by the leader, were exemplary and will be followed and are followed, for example, in Marylebone High Street. I second want to pay tribute to his philanthropy. Yes, he was very wealthy, but I think many of us know that the wealthy are actually, or the wealthiest are not particularly generous. And if you look at the figures overall, the wealthiest are amongst the least generous. But that is hidden because some of the very wealthy are very, very generous. And many, many organisations in Kensington and Chelsea are the beneficiaries, not least the Kensington and Chelsea Foundation, which itself gives to many other organisations too. So I send my condolences to his family, but I echo what Councillor Hargreaves said about what he has done for the borough. Thank you.
Councillor Gardner.
Madam Mayor, I too wanted to add my words of gratitude and to remember Charles Cadogan. Throughout my years on the council, he's been a constant presence, always flying the flag for Chelsea. Given what's already been said, I will actually edit what I'm going to say rather than repeat it a third time. But I would say we shared a love of Australia. My being a daughter of an Australian parent, and he and Dorothy had a lovely farm in Western Australia where he loved to stay, and he was devastated when it was destroyed in a bushfire. As Councillor Hargreaves has said, in November 2014, the borough bestowed the freedom of the Royal Borough on Charles, and it is an honour that we only really give to those people of distinction or those who have rendered an eminent services to the borough, and frankly, he had done both. And actually, it was very, very touching in his acceptance to see that actually he was moved to tears. His vision has come to define Chelsea and make it what it is today, a place where people want to live and to visit. And my heartfelt condolences to Dorothy and all the family. And I also just want to mention, Madam Mayor, that Lord Cadogan's association with the council goes back many decades, and his family gave the Chelsea chain, which I gather you're wearing specially tonight in his honour. And I think all my colleagues across all benches will send our heartfelt condolences to Dorothy and all the family. We will all miss Charles greatly, but his legacy and our happy memories of him will live on. Thank you.
Councillor Wade.
Thank you. The borough could learn a lot of lessons from the late Earl Cadogan. When he took over from his father in 1979, he reorganised the estate and took a long-sighted, creative approach to the management of his estate by controlling the mix of shops, businesses and restaurants. In investing in key locations, he showed foresight and secured the security of Chelsea and its shopping diversity. That showed initiative and master planning for the future, while retaining the integrity and preservation of Chelsea's unique architecture. His interests were wide and various, as was his philanthropic interests, such as his interest and concern for space, greening projects, which is where I got to meet him, and gardening and planting, and the creation of Duke of York Square, which I think everybody must say is an amazing success. I mean, it pulls everything together. His acquisition and creation of Cadogan Hall, which is a destination location and a prime London music venue, are just some of the lasting and enduring legacies for a man who had real commitment to the borough. And as Councillor Campbell said, he just knew everybody. And he didn't mind who you were, and he just treated you all the same. And he had a particular love of Chelsea, and that is his enduring legacy. Thank you.
Following the wonderful tributes, I would now like to pass our best wishes to Lady Cadogan and to Viscount Chelsea on his succession as the 9th Earl Cadogan. I would also like to share with members the happier news that His Majesty has chosen to award honours to the following who are connected with Kensington and Chelsea. Knighthood, Professor Peter John Barnes, FRS, Professor of Thoracic Medicine, Imperial College London. Officers of the Order of the British Empire, James Keith Babington, Vice Chair of National Association of Civic Officers, former Private Secretary to the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea Mayors. Members of the Order of the British Empire, Matteo Giulio Livio Bergani, founder and chief executive of Shout Out UK. Nicola Ann Butler, chief executive officer of Young KNC, Royal Borough of Kensington, Chelsea. Ina Hryavoric, head teacher of St. Mary's Ukrainian School, Royal Borough of Kensington, Chelsea. Irina Taratsky, chair, Association of Ukrainian Women in Great Britain. Petro Ruko, chairman, Association of Ukrainians in Great Britain. Finally, Anna Marta Dezik, known as Hania Dezik, Deputy Chair of the Association of Ukrainians in Great Britain. Would any members like to say a few words? Councillor Hargreaves, please, followed by Councillor Will, Councillor... Oh, sorry, my apologies. So Councillor Hargreaves, followed by Councillor Rossi, Councillor Will, Councillor Randall, and Councillor... The list goes on. I will remind people.
Madam Mayor, thank you very much. And may I add offer my congratulations to all those that you name in their awards in the birthday honours list. But I would like to pay particular congratulations to Jim Babington, a very old friend and colleague of us many in this chamber, on being awarded the OBE in the birthday honours list. In the various roles that I've had in the council, I worked quite closely with Jim and got to know him, as well as in his role as private secretary to the mayor of the borough here. Jim was born for that role, and he had a real understanding of the importance of civic life and the role that the mayor has in promoting civic life. For I think it was 21 or 22 mayors that he served, his aim was always to help make it the most special year of their life. Likewise, for visitors coming to the parlour, whoever they were, his aim was to make it the most truly memorable experience that you've had, and you go away from the parlour feeling as though you've really experienced something special. His attention to detail is exceptional. His patience and good humour saw him build a very special relationship with the mayors he served and the wider community. On his retirement, he did tell me that during all the mayors he worked with, he only lost his temper and had to raise his voice with one of them. Ever the diplomat, he never revealed to me which one it was. And I would add, it was before I became mayor, in case any of you want to think of that. But of course, it's not for that role, as you mentioned, Madam Mayor. It's for his other role as Vice Chairman of the National Association of Civic Officers that he's been awarded this award. In particular, for his service to the state funeral of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, that he's been given this special award. Coordinating Operation London Bridge, Jim had worked for many years helping to prepare local government's response to the death of the Queen, as he'd done in the death of His Royal Highness Prince Philip. He helped devise the plans and travelled the country briefing and training local authorities in their response on the occasion of the death of Her Majesty. So this award is clearly a reflection of the high esteem that Jim is held by NACO and by the wider community. So congratulations, Jim, OBE, well deserved.
Councillor Rossi.
Thank you. So the honours system has been criticised a bit recently, but where it works incredibly well is when honours are given to some of our unsung heroes, ordinary people who work tirelessly for the community. So I would say that Jim Babington richly deserves to be recognised with an OBE for his services to the Queen's State Funeral, codenamed London Bridge, on which he had worked for many, many years. And I think that this council also owes him a debt of honour for his unfailing service as private secretary to the mayors. Jim served many mayors, and I'm sure that some of us were quite demanding, but Jim was always polite and positive and reassuring. Those of us who have been privileged to be mayor know that most of the work goes on behind the scenes. The surface success is underpinned by hard graft and attention to detail. And Jim would never let you down. His knowledge of protocol and decorum was encyclopedic, and he was, in a sense, the definition of a true gentleman. So I would like to express my gratitude to him and also convey our congratulations from the Council to him on this award. Thank you.
Councillor Rendell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you to everyone who's gone before. I think Jim had a great impact on this borough. I want to talk about Nicola Blackwood, who has received an MBE in the... Butler, sorry. I'm so sorry. Nicola Butler. I got that wrong on the first. I'm sorry, Nicola, if you're watching at home. Nicola Butler, who's been awarded an MBE. And now, Nicola runs Young KNC. And Young KNC is a fantastic organisation for those who don't know it. So it brings together many partnerships across the borough, from voluntary sector, from communities, from obviously youth clubs, businesses. So the young people in our borough can get the best start in life. And I first met Nicola, Madam Mayor, in 2020 during lockdown. We had a Teams call, as we all did back in the day. And you could tell from even that point of view, even then, when children were at home, when children were having to learn in sometimes very difficult circumstances, that she was extremely passionate about doing the best that she could. I then met Nicola at the Chelsea Youth Club, which I attended with Councillor Will, and you could see the effort that Nicola put in to her association, her community, and what she did. So this award of an MBE is extremely well deserved, and I'd like to thank Nicola and her family and everyone else involved in Young KNC. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Hammond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and my congratulations to all those honoured. I want to return to Jim Babington particularly and congratulate him. We've heard from a couple of our distinguished former mayors, but my experience of Jim was from the other side, because I first met Jim before I was a councillor, and he was my introduction to the town hall. In 2016, when I was still serving in the RAF, it was Jim who got me into the Remembrance Service that year, which was my last appearance in uniform. And I got chatting to Jim at that occasion, and he heard that I was quite interested in going on to be a councillor. And he gave me quite a lot of encouragement, including sending me some council papers so I could come and sit up in the gallery. He sent me a planning committee, set of planning committee papers. So I could watch Councillor Husband chairing a committee. And he even sent me a full council budget paper. And if I'd been sensible, that's where it would have rested. But here we are, and in 2018, when I was elected, Jim was one of the first people I met at the town hall, and in an entirely apolitical way, he gave me a very warm welcome to the town hall. And I very much appreciate his encouragement and his advice over that period. And I would like to congratulate him again most warmly. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Foakes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to echo Councillor Rendell's congratulations to Nicola Butler and the amazing work that she's done, and to also echo all the congratulations to Jim Babington, to who I owe a very personal thank you. But I'm particularly delighted to see 3 of Ukrainian colleagues on this list, which is absolutely fantastic. And firstly, to congratulate Inna Hayrovich, who I don't know if many of you know what she's done. She runs the Ukrainian supplementary school that runs a school on Saturday, and she had to set up this school under incredible pressure and with incredible rapidity as soon as the Russian invasion of Ukraine started in February 222nd. Everything changed at that time, and suddenly, as you'll all know, a lot of Ukrainian children came to this borough, and we managed to find schools for them during the week, but obviously over the weekend there was this really difficult empty time with nothing for them to do. And Inna was just extraordinary. She set up this school. She now has had it in 3 separate locations around the borough. Over 900 children have attended that school. and we think that's going to exceed 1,000. What she has done for these traumatized children to help them settle into this new environment is just really been quite extraordinary. She's managed to find Ukrainian children's teachers who are here in this country, who have traveled every Saturday up to teach in the school, and she's taken them on outings, taught them language, but mainly I think just to help make them feel welcome and to appreciate all our welcome for these children in our borough. So I just wanted to quickly actually give a quote from the mothers of one of the children who attended her camp, and she said, "When I picked up my son from the camp, I finally recognized my child and that he was smiling and happy as before," which was just so incredibly moving that that's what Ina has done for her children. But I also want to just mention Irina Terlaki, who's the chair of the Association of Ukrainian Women, and Pedro Rowek, who's chair of the Association of Ukraines in Britain. And I want to say that all our hearts and thoughts are with you, and thank you for the extraordinary work you are doing, and welcome our Ukrainian guests in this country. And our thoughts are with the Ukrainians as well in their own country and the terrible suffering they're going through. But I just finally wanted to mention another member of RBKC, another resident, who is Julia Hughes-Harriott, who unfortunately got missed off the list, who has received an OBE in the latest list. Julia is the chair of the SmartWorks charity, which is based in St Charles Hospital. And as many of you know, she does an incredible job by helping ladies find outfits to wear for job interviews and also prepare them for job interviews. And they have an enormous success rate once they've helped support these women. So congratulations to Juliet as well. Thank you.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, it feels remiss if I don't speak about Jim, as I'm probably the oldest mayor on that list, or past mayor. He was wonderful when I was mayor, and very much subsequently when I was lead member, he was a very good head of department. But latterly, he's been a very good friend, and it is wonderful to see his skills being used and recognised outside of this chamber and this council. I think it's truly well-deserved and belatedly so. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Councillor Lane. Sorry, Councillor Will, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm sorry if I wasn't here earlier. Well, this isn't a eulogy. This is very much a celebration of so many of our wonderful, wonderful residents. And I want to say something very brief about Jim and Nicola, but obviously there are many, many more. And I think it's an opportunity for us all to just think about the fact that we have so many residents who do so much good work. So Jim Babington, echo what everyone says. He is just the most wonderful, courteous, modest, thoughtful person. Jim, wherever you are, I still miss you. Please come back and see us soon. We just were so lucky to have somebody like him work in this borough, man and boy, quite literally, I think. And another star is Nicola Butler. I was lucky enough to interview Nicola for the job that she eventually took at Young KNC, and it was pretty obvious to me that we were getting somebody fantastic, and she has not failed. She's just, again, just a huge asset to our borough. So I thank you for giving me this opportunity to just flag those people. And I want to say one more thing about Jim, which Catherine alluded to, his personal kindness to particularly Catherine and I in a very particular difficult day. But I think it's just, it just echoes what a fantastic person he is. Thank you.
Councillor Lowry.
Just firstly, Madam Mayor, I mean, it probably comes as no surprise, and I think that the Labour group, and I think Councillor Rossi alluded to this, given certain national scandals, take some issue with the meritocracy of the honours system, but in residents of this borough, it has recognised some amazing individuals, if you give me a chance to speak. And I do want to echo my colleague's sentiment towards Jim Babington, who, in my formative years on this council, in the first year I joined, was an immense help in helping me understand procedure. He was an extremely courteous man, and a face I will never forget, because he was one of the very first people I met when I joined the council. He was also extremely supportive to the Labour Party's deputy mayors in this borough, not only just the mayors. For example, Councillor Bakhtiar, who I'm sure will have some great memories of him, for example, helping Councillor Bakhtiar organise the memorial to the Kurds who fell victim to Iraq's decimation during the war over 30 years ago, and helping us establish our memorial in Holland Park to that. And secondly, I want to say that no praise can be too high for the work of Ukrainian nationals and dual nationals who live in this borough, including the 4 who are honoured, who we've been speaking about today. We should be proud as a borough that we are a centre in Europe of the Ukrainian community, and we've had Ukrainian nationals come and speak to us in public speaking before, and we will ever be aware of our need to support them in their unimaginable plight, which will only continue. And on that note, I just want to wish everyone who has been awarded an honour in Kensington and Chelsea specifically, on behalf of the Labour Group, our hearty congratulations.
Councillor Bakhtiar.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to add and echo whatever said about Jim Babington. And I think Councillor Hargreave described him very well. I served as Deputy Mayor with Councillor Rossi for a year, and he was immensely helpful, detailed, smiling all the time, giving advice. I have never come across anyone like him in my life. Very, very special and unique person. Thank you for his service, and I do deeply congratulate him and all the others. Thank you.
Councillor Wade.
I think a lot of people need to be congratulated. I think the Ukrainian school is quite exceptional, and but I'd wanted to speak to Mr. Babington because I think he's representative of the Mayor's Parlour in general. Mr. Babington, well, he was always there, wasn't he? He was kind of like an institution. I'd never known the council without Mr. Babington. So, but he was always very calm and very organised, and nothing really fazed him. So he always had a smile irrespective of what was happening. And this award is very well deserved and acknowledges a man, but it also, in part, acknowledges all the work that goes on behind the scenes and the people who get things done. Thank you.
Thank you all. Following all those wonderful tributes to Jim Babington, we feel we are missing out a bit. So I shall now ask the Chief Executive to report apologies for absence or lateness. Oh, sorry, no. Sorry. So we're going back. Sorry. Do members have any petitions to present? Statement by the leader and response by the leader of the majority party. I now invite the leader of the council to address the meeting for up to 5 minutes.
Thank you. And before I start, Madam Mayor, I'd just like to say it's great to see you settled into your new role. And can I just pray... And can I just praise you for the leading role you took at the Grenfell anniversary. You led staff through our own 72-second silence and the ceremony with such empathy and care. So thank you. Last week was a difficult week for communities here in Kensington and Chelsea as people came together to remember the 72 people who lost their lives in the worst tragedy imaginable. And it's difficult to believe that it's 6 years ago. And I know many of the people in this chamber or watching the meeting at home, They still have those events etched into their memories now and will have forevermore. And together with Kim, I was honoured to attend some events organised by community leaders. And as ever, the families led the way with such dignity and strength. And I also know that my colleagues and everyone at the Council finds the Silent March just as poignant now as when it began in 2017. Where I stand, it's more important than ever that politicians who make promises deliver on them, not delay and dally, getting sidetracked with their own infighting or political point scoring. As Eddie Defan said in several articles last week, Grenfell was and is still and should be a catalyst for societal change. And it's important that we all recognise this and that the various statements put out by a number of politicians and organisations last week are not just platitudes. Change needs to happen nationally. People need to be safe in their homes. The system needs to catch those who put profit before people. Madam Mayor, we prioritise action over talk here at KNC. The work on the £120 million refurbishment of Lanc West Estate is testament to that. And as Kim said, we are working with residents more and more, and we look to them to take us through the redesign of their estate. And I absolutely accept what we've heard this evening means that, things are not perfect. Not everything is perfect. But tonight is also a good example of how we do things differently. Residents raised the issue of rising costs with us, and we put in place a fund to support them. We listen and we help where we can. Residents have led the refurbishment of the estate every step of the way. And what's more, Madam Mayor, we're taking these lessons and this way of working out across the borough. And on Monday, I visited Silchester and saw firsthand how we are putting safety first and foremost in our housing. And it was encouraging to meet Nahid and Aman, who lead the Residents Association, hear about the difference the £46 million refurbishment will make to the lives of people living there, and learn about their role in making it happen. This council has put safety as a priority, and we're listening to residents all the way as we install significant features like dry risers, new doors and backup generators. Lancaster West, Silchester and estates across the borough, we have demonstrated that we can work with residents and co-design with authenticity, not words, but action. And finally, Madam Mayor, it was inspiring to talk to our caretaker, Oswaldo, on Silchester, a member of the KNC team and a person held in high regard by the residents he serves day in and day out. And it just goes to show how important it is to have a human face and a personal touch, and that our frontline services are being responsive, proactive, and acting with care and competence. It really does make a difference. So, Madam Mayor, we're all working hard as a team to make this borough greener, safer and fairer, and we will continue to do so. Thank you.
Councillor Ali.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I share with the note from the Leader of the Council that you are indeed settling with your position, and I wish you well, and I'm sure you will do well at the Council. Madam Mayor, 6 years, it has been 6 years now, and 6 years just passed since Grenfell disaster. And yet, 6 years on, no one is held accountable for the 72 victims who lost their lives. The Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea Labour Group of Councillors are demanding justice for Grenfell victims now and not to wait for another year. Madam Mayor, I wish to thank each and every one of our residents, RBKC residents and people across the country who join us every month for the silent walk. And on that note, I wish to extend my thanks to the Labour Party leadership team who always join us at the silent walk and who laid the wreath with us at the last anniversary, and especially the team led by the Right Honourable Lisa Nandi, MP Shadow Secretary for Levelling Up Housing, Communities and Local Government. And I hope that they will continue to come and support local communities. Special thanks to Grenfell United team for organizing the silent walk every month, year in, year out. I also would like to wish to thank organizations that have been supporting Grenfell community for many years, such as Grenfell Tower Trust, Grenfell Next of Kin, and Justice for Grenfell, to name a few. Madam Mayor, as the leader of the Labour group, the Labour opposition, I will now read out all the 72 names of the victims who've lost their lives from now onwards, every year, if I remain the leader of the opposition and if I get the opportunity to lead this council, so that this council leaders and the councillors around the country will forever remember Grenfell victims when they are making decisions that impact residents' lives. And bear with me, Madam Mayor. I will read the 72 victims that we always hear, but this chamber has never been said in my presence. And on that note, I will have extended time if time requires. And do apologize if I do come across, because I have witnessed that night. And what I have seen that night will never be erased from my memory. Anthony Dyson, Basim Shakur, Nadia Shakur, Marianne Shakur, Fatima Shakur, Zainab Shakur, Hashim Kadir, Noura Jamal, Yahya Hashim, Firdaus Hashim, Yaqub Hashim, Saria Shakur, Logan Gomez, Abdulaziz Al-Wahabi, Fawzia Al-Wahabi, Yasin Al-Wahabi, Nur Huda Al-Wahabi, Mahdi Al-Wahabi, Ligaya Moore, Jessica Bano Ramirez, Omar Belkadi, Farah Hamdan, Malik Belkadi, Lina Belkadi, Mary Minde, Khadija Sayed, Victoria King, Alexandra Atala, Muhammad Noor Tusi, Amaldeen Tusi, Amaya Tusi, Amna Mahmoud Idris, Maria Billy Patton, Margia Fatul, Vital, Oni Vital, Debbie Lambert, Gary Mendes, Barkiti Hafton, Burak Hafton, Hamid Khani, Zayak Polis, Fatia Afrasawabi, Sakina Afrasiwabi, Vincent Cheonji, Khadija Kalofi, Kumru Mia, Rabia Begum, Muhammad Hamid, Muhammad Hanif, Husna Begum, Joseph Daniels, Sheila, Steve Power, Zainab Dean, Jamaria Dean, Muhammad Al-Haji Ali, Dennis Murphy, Ali Yahya Jafri, Abdusalam Sabr, Fatia Ahmed Al-Sanusi, Abu Ras Muhammad Ibrahim, Isra Ibrahim, Muhammad Hamid Sapur Nida, Hashim Rahman, Rania Ibrahim, Rania Ibrahim, Hania Hassan, Fatia Hassan, Margot Gotri, Gloria Tavison, Isla Al-Gahwari, Mariam Al-Gahwari, and Raymond Moses Bennett, forever in our hearts. That concludes my conclusion. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. In accordance with the standing orders, I rule that the order of business shall, as printed, is in the agenda. Item 9, I now invite Councillor Campbell to propose the reception of the report which is pages 37 to 39 of the supplementary pack, and Councillor Taylor-Smith to respond. Councillor Campbell.
I just move to move the report. May I beg to move the report, Madam Mayor?
I just beg to second, not respond. Thank you.
Councillor Campbell, would you like to speak to the report? This is item only to note as it refers to historical decisions, and the whips have not indicated that anyone wishes to speak. Therefore, is the report on pages 37 to 39 of the supplementary pack noted? The report is noted. Item 10, I now invite Councillor Hargreaves to propose the reception of the Audit and Transparency Committee annual report, and Councillor Yankson to second. Councillor Hargreaves.
Wish to propose, Madam Mayor.
I wish to second, Madam Mayor.
I will now invite Councillor Hargreaves to speak.
Madam Mayor, thank you very much. And as Chair of the Audit and Transparency Committee, it gives me great pleasure in presenting this annual report of the activities of the committee over the past 12 months. The report gives a picture of the range of the activities that the committee covers, and clearly much of the committee's attention is focused on the annual audit, currently undertaken by Grant Thornton. And members will see that the 2022-23 accounts were completed by the statutory deadline of the 31st of May 2023 and published on the Council's website, and that's a copy that I have here. And it is worth noting, in a tribute to our officers, that we were only one of 8 London boroughs that were able to publish their 22-23 accounts by the statutory deadline. The audit of these accounts begins on the 3rd of July 2023. And I would like to thank all the members of the finance team for their hard work in preparing the accounts in this very timely way. We are very fortunate in having 3 externally co-opted members on our committee. Their experience and external perception is valuable in ensuring that we remain challenging in our approach and current in our thinking. I would also like to thank them for their excellent contribution to the work of the committee, particularly to Cosette Rezek, who stood down from the committee at the end of her term. I would also like to thank the members of the Audit, Fraud, Risk and Insurance teams for their support during the year, and to Callum Southern for his governance support. And finally, my thanks go to my fellow Council committee members for their hard work over the year. Many of the papers we get are very long and very complicated, and I thank them for the time that they invest in reading those papers and contributing to the meetings that we have. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Does any other member wish to speak? No. Councillor Hargreaves, would you like to sum up? No. Does the Council agree with recommendation 2.1 on page 17? Oh, sorry. Agreed. Councillor Sina, Laurie, are you okay? Yeah, okay. The report is noted. Item 11, matters referred by the Overview and Scrutiny Committee or the Select Committee. Item 12, I have received notice of one question to a lead member. I now invite Councillor Bakhtir to ask a question to Councillor Taylor-Smith. Mine's not off. Mine's not going off.
Hold your finger on it.
just that you
No.
get heard.
Oh, yes, working now. Yes. Yes.
Hello? Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, it's working now. Very kind of you. Thank you. Yeah. I have asked a question over 3 months ago to Councillor Taylor Smith, and the question was very simple. Why are we still trading with Travis Perkins to renovate or to maintain our housing stock in the borough, which is the most expensive builders merchants in the country? And I was promised an answer over 3 months ago, and I'm still waiting for that answer. Thank you.
So, thank you, Councillor Bakhtia. I recall having a conversation with you about Travis Perkins, but I do apologise that I haven't given that to you in writing, and I'm happy to repeat really what we discussed before. So, the rationale behind using Travis Perkins is contained within a key decision which was taken last year, and it's really all about the council commitment to leading the way on health and safety and improving the quality and environmental sustainability of our homes. I mean, Travis Perkins, I would say, are certainly not the most expensive builders merchants in the country, as you're suggesting, and the contract was awarded after a framework agreement and after comparing rates and with under agreements with suppliers, and was approximately 2% more favourable than before. So Travis Perkins also score very highly in their customer service, and they would deliver across the borough-wide, avoiding unnecessary trips by our maintenance and repair team, and improving very much our response times. So considerable effort has been made in improving our repair service, and resident satisfaction is improving, but we're not there yet. And as I say, mentioned earlier, that whilst in London satisfaction on repairs is declining, I'm pleased to report that ours is going up and going in the right direction. So I think really in conclusion, we're not wasting or even spending 1.5 million, and there is a cap of £1 million on expenditure with Travis Perkins, but we will continue to price check and ensure that we're getting the best deal possible. Thank you for your question.
Councillor Bakhtia, do you have a follow-up question?
I would like to ask a supplementary question. The council is spending millions of pounds to renovate the existing buildings. Do we have a mechanism checking the way the builders are functioning and doing their job while they are still there, or are we checking them when they have finished? Because I check and I report almost on a weekly basis what happens in Henry Dickens Court, because I live there. I am not very happy, not satisfied the way they are conducting, they are operating. Some of them, especially the painters and decorators, are not professionals. They don't understand what they are doing. Painting is not just throwing paint at things. It's protecting wood, protecting walls. It's extending life by 10 to 20 years. So they are not doing a proper job. Are we monitoring? Do we have anyone? Do we have officers checking on this?
The short answer to that is yes. I don't have the statistic to hand, but we monitor repairs and repair satisfactions independently, and I can certainly send it to you. But again, I'm pleased to say that I know that we've seen improving. And really the best person to monitor it is like yourself, is the resident themselves to call in, and we encourage residents to do that when work has been completed, to advise us, because they're at the end of the day who we're doing the work to, and it's a question of them being satisfaction. We also have independent people going around, and we will check on work, but I'm happy to give you the percentage in terms of response from our residents in terms of quality of repairs. Thank you. As always, Councillor Bakhtia, I'm always open for an invitation. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 13, I have received 4 requests to speak under Standing Order 11, which is the maximum allowed. Could the following members please speak for up to 2 minutes each on a ward or other live issue of a general broad principle. We can start with Councillor Adorian, Councillor Hammond, Councillor Wade, and then Councillor Ahmed. You might need to turn your microphone on.
Perfect. Try one. Yes, we'll try that one again. The Bolton pub in Earls Court sits at the corner of Old Brompton Road and Earls Court Road. And though perhaps I should be a bit more accurate and say it used to sit at that location since it closed its doors, sadly for the final time, in September. The building itself dates from the 1890s, though there has been a pub at that location since at least the 1860s, and it became known later in the 1970s and 80s as one of the centres of gay community life in Earls Court and in London, making it, I think, well, at least giving it certainly a valuable place in the social history of our city. Given this, and given the many unique and original interior and exterior architectural features of the building, I believe it is important that we should preserve it. I would therefore call on the Council to begin, if possible, the process of listing the building and of protecting the use of the ground floor as a public house indefinitely, and working with any new owner to make sure that this beautiful venue, original venue, can reopen its doors again for all to enjoy. Thank you very much.
Councillor Hammond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm speaking to mark an important milestone in the project that I started in 2018 to preserve the historic Mews arches and other built assets with a working group with my friends Councillor Bennett and Councillor Aretti. Our working group discovered a legal way of the council doing the work to preserve these unowned assets, but it took another year to get a budget line in the capital budget, thanks to my friend Councillor Wheel. It took a third year to do surveys on all 44 Mews arches to determine a priority order, a fourth year to do contract tenders, and the fifth year, just completed, has seen the work on the top two most at-risk Mews arches, which are Gasper Mews in my ward and Lexham Mews in Abingdon ward. And I'm pleased to say that both of those have recently been unveiled. They both look magnificent again. They're both safe again. And I do want to thank the officers who've helped with this. Particularly, I want to recognise Jago Williams from Building Control, who's project managed this. And I'd like to thank the successive lead members, Councillors Thalasitis and Kamali, for their support, and Councillor Thalasitis for his ongoing support as the lead member for Finance, for protecting the budget line for this to ensure that we can do more of these preservation works in the years to come. Thank you, ma'am.
Councillor Wade.
Just an update to everybody before I get on to my thing. We've already made an application to English Heritage for the retention of the interior of the Bolton Hotel, because the exterior is largely covered by it being in a conservation area, but we would welcome everybody's support to retain it because it's got a fantastic Victorian interior, which is irreplaceable. Anyway, on to mine. In a borough with a falling population and a birth rate, there are enormous pressures on our educational providers to be financially viable. At the same time, pressures on working parents to find affordable, safe and secure nursery places in the borough. Therefore, I'd like to ask the borough to review of nursery places provision for 2-year-olds within our primary schools. It's important that our 2-year-olds' needs are met to support their psychological, emotional and physical development, and these requirements are very different to those of 3 or 4-year-olds. The accommodation, resourcing, play, rest time, rest areas, appropriately trained staff and staffing levels required are different. They cannot be plug-ons to an existing provision. Providing real inclusion and equity in early education years with a strong foundation supporting the 5 measures of cognitive attainment assessed at entry to primary school in our diverse borough is a necessity for an early start for our children. What assessments have the leadership team undertaken to ensure financial viability of our nursery and primary schools in a borough to guarantee that all children will have equal access to age-appropriate care and early years education? Thank you.
Councillor Ahmed.
Thank you. An election promise from the former Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, during the 2019 election campaign was the building of 40 new hospitals. This was then swiftly revised to refurbishing 40 existing hospitals, which then became refurbishing 6 before finally, it seems, nothing at all. After allowing our local hospitals to fall into decline through a decade of underfunding and, in the case of Charing Cross, threatened closures, the government committed to refurbishing Hammersmith, St Mary's and Charing Cross. These promises have now been abandoned with the amount... Just listen. Just listen. These promises have now been abandoned with the announcement from the Health Secretary last month that none of these improvement works will be completed by 2030. Crucially, there appears to be no guarantee of government funding for these much-needed works to go ahead at all. The appalling consequences of the government's decision will be borne out in the health and well-being of the residents we serve. Professor Tim Orchard, who's the Chief Executive of Imperial College Healthcare NHS Trust, which runs the 3 hospitals I mentioned, has stated that delaying these much-needed improvements until 2030 would be hugely damaging for the health and healthcare of hundreds and thousands of local people. Everywhere you look within the NHS, you see the impact of 13 years of austerity and willful neglect. NHS staff are struggling to deliver care safely in a crumbling estate. And as the Labour group for Kensington and Chelsea, we know all too well from our constituents in the north of the borough the impact that these failings have on their ability to access timely care. The Labour group calls on the Council's leadership to seek urgent clarification from the government on the funding and timeline of the refurbishments and firmly make the case for these refurbishments to go ahead. We'll also be continuing to work with residents and local campaign groups on local concerns, including the closure of inpatient palliative care beds at Pembridge Hospice and the mental health beds at the Gordon Hospital. Thanks.
Item 14, members will see that we have 4 motions printed in the agenda. Motion 1 is on the subject of e-bikes, under Standing Order 19.11, Council consent to the using of the altered text as set out in clean form on page 43 of the supplementary pack. I call on Councillor North formally to move the motion, standing in his name, and Councillor Hammond to second.
I beg to move the motion.
I beg to second, ma'am.
I now invite Councillor North to speak for up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm grateful to be given this opportunity to propose this motion on a subject that I know many of our residents have told us that is an issue for them. It is a challenge for all London boroughs, how best to encourage but better manage the growing popularity of e-bikes. Now, I'd like to thank Madam Mayor, as I know this motion was actually one that was due to come before a previous council meeting, and I appreciate the work that you have done on this. But may I also thank the lead member and his team, and importantly the council officers, for their work to develop and consult on this. So 13 years ago, it was a previous and very popular London mayor that introduced a well-managed and affordable London-wide bike hire system in our capital city. Still affectionately known as the Boris Bikes, their popularity grew and other private bike hire schemes have developed, such as Lime Bikes and Human Forest. And as we all try to support a range of transport options that are greener and healthier. As we strive to be that greener, safer and fairer borough, we recognise that the benefits of e-bikes have a part to play. It's about getting the balance of doing the best to support safe cycling and offering e-bike companies somewhere to safely return their bikes and encourage their users not to leave them on pavements or in areas where pedestrians struggle to navigate. But of course, along with that carrot, there does need to be a stick. In my own ward of Camden, we knock on doors each week, and increasingly we are told by our residents that although they see the benefits of cycling, they want us to manage the problem. Last month, we held a surgery in Hamilton House, a block of flats with many senior citizens. The number one issue that they were raised by those residents is that they face e-bikes left lying around on pavements. Just last week at the St George's Community Lunch Club, our residents there told us that they want our council to act on this problem for those with partial sight, mobility issues, and those that struggle to navigate around them. And I know that many of those residents told me that they will be watching online tonight. So I'm pleased to say, along with many other local people that have been consulted on this already, that we do hear your concerns, and I hope this chamber can unite to offer a positive policy to address what we have been told is matters to our residents. May I ask the lead member to outline what this borough will be doing to welcome and better manage the use of e-bikes, and how will our residents be able to see any new policy? And may I reach out to my colleagues on the opposition and growing independent benches to support and join this motion, as I believe that it is a motion and a developing policy that is one that our residents across the borough tell us they want us to deal with. It's pro-bike, it's pro-pedestrian, it's pro-health, and it's pro-green. And it's just pro-common sense. What's not to love? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's an honour to follow Councillor North, but Madam Mayor, I'd like to thank you for doing me the honour of asking me to second this motion at least 2, if not 3 council meetings ago when you wrote the original version of it. And I'd also like to thank the Deputy Mayor who was going to speak on this motion and has sent me his speech, and I'm not going to read that out because I couldn't possibly do justice to his eloquence. But suffice to say that he and I completely agree, and I think the points I'm going to make are the same points that he would have made had he had the opportunity to speak tonight. When we did this original motion, I think this was going to be my opportunity to have a public rage in this chamber about inconsiderate parking of the bikes and about the risk to elderly and disabled residents. And I think that's the points that have been covered by Councillor North in Camden Ward are equally relevant in Courtfield Ward, especially around the Anglesey Arms. And I'm sure it's a common factor right across the borough. But the picture is rather more nuanced than just having an anti-bike rage, because the bikes are popular. They're clearly popular. You see them all around the borough. And rather like the well-established Boris bikes, they've got their place in the London transport ecosystem, and so have the new e-scooters, or relatively new e-scooters. I will say that the CEO of DOT, one of the e-scooter companies and actually one of the e-bike companies, is a constituent in Courtfield Ward, and I will declare that I enjoyed my free ride around Thurlow Square on one of the scooters that he organised with Councillor Evans and Councillor Thalasitis. But of course the purpose of this motion, as well as having a rage, was to give the leadership team a kick into action. But at the risk of stealing the lead member's thunder, I think we've actually achieved the objective by just putting a motion on the order paper 6 months ago. Because I'm very pleased to say that the proposal that's going through for designated parking bays, corralling the parking into bays in exactly the same way that is done with the e-scooters, is the way forward, and I'm pleased that we're towards the end of the consultation period on those parking bays for the bikes. I know that 9 out of 12 proposed sites in my ward have gone through, and I suspect that will be a typical picture across the borough. And so that is a pragmatic way forward. It's a way forward I very strongly support, and I look forward to that policy being implemented at the very earliest opportunity when we get through the decision-making process. And I'm sure now I've completely ruined the lead member's speech because no doubt he was going to tell us all that. But he can no doubt confirm that whether I'm right or not, and also update us on the timeline when he gets the chance to speak. But I do commend his policy, and I do commend the motion to the Chamber. Thank you.
I will now open the motion up to debate. I call upon the councillors who wish to speak. Okay. Councillor Zwiedniuk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to speak to support this motion, and like my fellow... Can you hear me, or am I too far away from the... Perfectly. Like my fellow councillors, acknowledge that e-bikes on their own, I think, are a good innovation. They promote active, affordable travel, and they help people improve their overall health, and they help us improve the air quality in the borough. But we need better infrastructure and enforcement in place to make it work. Too often in Chelsea Riverside, I see abandoned rental e-bikes left in the middle of the pavement, obstructing the path for pedestrians and causing real difficulties for anyone with a wheelchair or a pram. And I hear about this from residents too, antisocial parking of e-bikes and also traditional bicycles, even when there are parking bays just a few meters away, sometimes they're just completely ignored. And this obviously also creates an unsightly and cluttered environment, which is upsetting to those who live on the street. So it's really positive that the council is taking action and is proposing dedicated parking bays for e-bikes. I just want to note that these must be located in sensible locations where there's likely to be lots of demand nearby for use of the e-bikes and where they don't create more clutter. I also really welcome the opportunity to work together on a well-designed solution to improve enforcement, which I think is a necessary deterrent for both the service provider and the user. And may I say, I'm not an e-scooter user myself, but I'm told that there are efforts to reduce antisocial parks of e-scooters where riders are charged or penalised if they don't park them appropriately and provide evidence or as proof that they've done so. So may I suggest that we look at those sorts of solutions, as well as how we can use parking wardens, better enforcement of fines, sensible signposting, and better awareness amongst residents about how to report antisocial parking. And I think we also need to work with the e-bike companies themselves. When we decide to work with them in the borough, they need to think very creatively and offer ways to mitigate any negative effects of e-bikes so that residents can enjoy the benefits. Thank you.
Councillor Durian.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to Councillors North and Councillor Hammond for this very timely motion. It is without a doubt the case that the use of these e-bikes has increased significantly, to say the least, in recent years, and it is entirely right that we seek to regulate their use, and so it can be a well-managed addition to the range of transport options that we benefit from in this borough. I do want to make the point, however, that in seeking to convert residential parking bays to these new e-bike bays, the principle of which I fully support, we should be aware of the pressures on parking, which can vary significantly around the borough. I'm fully aware that the overall number of parking permit applications have been falling in recent years, but again, pressures on some streets are much greater than in others. So I would ask, when considering these locations, for parking bay occupancy data and local views to be taken into account when deciding them. Thank you again for the motion, which I'm very pleased to support. Thank you.
Councillor Simmons.
Thank you. Just to make a quick distinction before I begin, there is a difference between being anti-obstruction and being anti-bike. And for the avoidance of doubt, I just want to make it clear it's because I'm pro-bike that I'm anti-obstruction. So I'm very pleased to see this motion on the issue of dockless bikes and scooters, which are daily creating obstructions to the public highway and hazards to those with mobility or vision impairments or young children. I thought it was an offence to obstruct a highway maintained at public expense, and I'm personally baffled at how local authorities across the land have been permitting this free-for-all by these companies at the expense of pedestrians, including the most vulnerable of our residents. This is an issue that affects our residents in the north of the borough, and one which I've personally mentioned on many occasions on social media, so I'm very pleased to see it being picked up here. As Councillors North and Hammond know, the Council is already taking action to tackle this by allocating 10 parking spaces per ward to be designated for the parking of these dockless bikes. Whether the users of these bikes will make use of these spaces remains to be seen, but in any case, residents are losing much in-demand public parking spaces to the imposition of the dockless business model, which profits from the use and abuse of the public realm and lacks safeguards, procedures or resource allocation to protect the public from these issues. I share the concerns of Councillors Lloyd and North around the appropriateness of the dockless business model for this or any borough. I note that other boroughs are charging the companies for provision of the dedicated parking spaces, which is only right. I understand RBKC also will be charging, and I trust that the fees will reflect the valuable public resource that they are receiving. Most of all, I hope that the lead member for Planning, Place and Environment will be paying close attention to the effectiveness of the parking bay allocations in addressing this issue and be willing to take further action if the problem persists.
Councillor Ali.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have supported this motion when your name was on it, and now we are supporting again. And I think important to mention what just Councillor Simmons have mentioned, and I think safety, very, very important. And we have seen here and there, all the time in north of the borough, safety is number one for those who cannot see, vision impaired. So I hope this motion will pass through, will go through by support of both chambers. But at the same time, will be remembered the safety of our residents will be the top priority, and we are happy to work with the lead member on this occasion if there is need to be. Thank you.
Councillor New. Councillor Bakhtir.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor North and Hammond, thank you for bringing this good motion. I think we needed that and a long time ago. This morning, it's an obstacle. This morning, I saw a lady coming on a wheelchair, coming towards me, and there was a bike in the middle. There was a tree and a bike. So I had to physically move the bike to allow the lady to pass, because people park them everywhere. Ironically, it wasn't a Lime bike. It was a Boris bike with its back wheel punctured. So the other issue we have is Lime bike, they have a security problem. Boys could ride them, they don't know how, they have a way. They take them for joyride, it's very dangerous. They leave them everywhere because no element of accountability, they don't pay anything. So this company needs to be alerted. If we have officers in charge, please alert them. They have a safety issue. People, I've seen them, I don't want to explain, I don't want to publicize the way they do it. But there is a safety breach in this for the Lime company. They need to address it immediately. So we are, as the leader said, we are in favor and we will be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Verboven.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We are pleased that this motion has been brought forward. We are always in favour of a wider range of mobility options, including cycling, but they need to come with the right infrastructure. As councillors, we've had to deal with many cases of antisocially parked e-bikes in the ward and have successfully lobbied Lime to geofence the exit of Earls Court Tube Station, which stops users from parking their bikes right outside the station. And we encourage officers to follow that example. What we do ask for is that RBKC strengthens its asks when it's dealing with the e-bike providers. They could be asked to pay for additional security features around the designated spaces, such as railings to prevent bikes from falling over onto the pavement or even onto the road, creating dangerous situations for other road users. This has been done successfully in other places in London, and that can be replicated here as well. RBKC also needs to be tougher on enforcement, taking a proactive role in reporting antisocial parking and not just leave it to the residents. And for that, we encourage RBKC to enter an agreement with these e-bike providers, as currently there is no such agreement, and such agreements exist with other boroughs, which will mean that these e-bike providers will actually come into action faster in case of any issues, which is not happening at the moment. So for that, we will be supporting this motion, and we are very keen to hear on how it will be implemented. Thank you very much.
Councillor Dentcode.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We acknowledge that the invasion of these e-bikes and scooters, because we can't ignore them too, creates street clutter and dangerous blocking of pavements, and it has to be dealt with before it causes a serious accident. The original motion proposed quite serious mitigation by fining companies whose vehicles are dumped, and that's a good idea, but not really enough. And now what, there are then going to be no sanctions, it's just encouragement, enforcement, and create bays and hope that people will do the right thing. I fear they won't. During a 5-minute walk the other day from Gloucester Gate to the Town Hall, I counted 9 DOT e-bikes, 14 Lime e-bikes, 7 Swap e-bikes, a forest of human forest e-bikes. There were 2 ranks of Santander push bikes completely untouched, clearly not as popular as they were, and arriving at the Town Hall, a jumble of scooters, bikes and unwanted Santander, probably 50 or 60 two-wheeled hired vehicles within half a mile. In St Helens, we have had enough, and our residents are saying no more, no more, we have enough, and we are absolutely overwhelmed. St Helens has become a bike dump. What is clear from the quantity of rental bikes and scooters in the borough is that there's a huge fight going on for supremacy between these commercial companies in advance of legislation that has been delayed, but we hope will come in next year. It's an utter free-for-all, and there's plenty of abuse on the way. We know that e-bikes are kind of legal, as long as they have they're taxed and insured. Of course, there's absolutely no monitoring and enforcement. And scooters, as we know, you're allowed to use commercially run ones, but not privately owned ones. It's utter confusion and mess. And as we know, the privately owned ones, some of which have low quality batteries and chargers, there are 50 fires a week in London of privately owned scooters brought into the home, and some of them is bikes as well, and they're incredibly dangerous. The lithium batteries do not extinguish easily. So you can, in theory, be stopped on an electric scooter. I don't think that happens if you don't have insurance. And if the police catch you, you can be fined. But it doesn't happen. When will they be legalised and regulated? It's been pushed forward, I think, into 2024 now. There are no rules. It's a commercial free-for-all, and it's utter chaos. In the past couple of months, I've heard of the following injuries. An e-bike in Ladbroke Grove, somebody driving cycling like a maniac up Ladbroke Grove, fell off and had and I don't want to go into details, what they called a very bad broken ankle, a very, very bad broken ankle. A friend who was knocked over by a scooter on the pavement who broke her wrist. Without any legislation, they're dangerous and they encourage pavement cycling. There's more pavement cycling now than there has ever been in my nearly 40 years in North Kent. And this will end up in a serious accident because there is no enforcement. My concern, apart from all the other issues, What is going to happen when this legislation is finalised? Will it be our poor enforcement officers, who clearly face plenty of abuse already, will be in charge of overseeing the correct use of e-bikes and e-scooters? The enforcement officers must be paid, and please, please, can the council lobby government to push forward the legislation before there's a fatal accident? Thank you.
Councillor Kamali to speak up to Councillor Hargreaves.
Madam Mayor, thank you very much. And can I just echo many of the comments that have already been made on this and support the motion. It's interesting, my attention was brought to this when I used to go out canvassing with Councillor Beryl Cox when he was a councillor in this chamber. And for an able-bodied person, that was a real education for me, because I went around the borough with him in a very heavy and bulky wheelchair. You realise that his whole time was spent looking for drop curbs, where that bag of rubbish was, how near it was to the wall, where's that tree, and it was a real education to me, and that of course has now been made worse by the e-bikes and the e-scooters that are littered across our borough. So I really support this motion, but also comments that everybody else has made on enforcement. One of the reasons why the Borwick bikes is successful is they go into a docking station, and they actually are securing that docking station. So can we look at really making the enforcement heavy, and if people put them in the designated bays, it only requires someone to come past and knock them over, and actually they're littered on the street. So that's why the docking stations work better, I think, but I don't know how far we can go to that. So I thoroughly support this and hope that actually the enforcement goes with it, because that will be the crucial thing to making it happen. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Kamali, up to 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I shall address the proposer as printed in the order paper tonight, Councillor North, but please know that your many months as being the listed proposer of this motion have not been forgotten. And indeed, our solution to this problem is a borough-wide approach, not just for Councillor North, but for Councillor South, Councillor East and Councillor West. We, Madam Mayor, remain a borough committed to improving residents' and visitors' lives, facilitating choice of travel options and offering more self-responsibility. Sadly, with the case of e-bikes, whilst it's fantastic to have this new form of transport in the borough and see so many people using it to get around, some members of the public have not quite taken the self-responsibility element to heart. They dump the bicycles in the way of the disabled, the less mobile, those with baby buggies, and clog up our already narrow and historic pavements, without a care in the world as to the impact they might be inflicting upon others. We have heard tonight how we must tackle this issue, and whilst Labour Westminster spent time virtue signalling on TV, using diesel vans to go around and collect the bicycles, they merely had to return them to the operators shortly after, and it made not a jot of difference to the streets. I can safely say that they were not so keen for the return of the bicycles to feature as prominently on television. We here, however, in RBKC aren't elected to signal our virtues. We are here to make the lives of our residents better, and to that end we have to put ourselves ahead of the majority of London by working with the companies themselves to resolve the problem. Placing ourselves ahead of others has meant we have had to find the ways to make a proposal work. This has led us to the idea of dedicated bays for the bicycles, controlled by GPS, with penalties on the users which don't comply. We are hopeful this will have a marked improvement in user behaviour and pavement obstruction, but we are, however, in uncharted waters. The operators have as yet no London-wide legislation compelling them to engage with us, but I believe our pro-business and pro-resident approach will mean that they will continue to be able to provide a service to our residents and visitors for many years to come. This approach will make cycling easier, with the electric assist mode negating the need for skin-tight lycra. Not that I don't look good in it, but it makes climbing Ladbroke Grove a joy rather than a chore. It will, we also hope, encourage more of our residents to cycle, and also for visitors to come from further afield to spend time on our fantastic high streets and on our newly created amazing spaces, all the while helping make RBKC greener, safer and fairer. Thank you.
I now invite Councillor North as the mover to respond to the debate for up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'm grateful to my colleague for pointing out the compass direction. You can always trust True North. I'm also grateful for... Also grateful to my 8 colleagues that have given positive input in this, and I'm really pleased that we can unite as a chamber. This is a genuinely good policy and a genuinely good reason why we should work together on this. To my colleague sat just here, to recognise the health benefits I thought was very important, and to Councillor Adurian to recognise the pressures that will be put on our parking bays is something worth thinking about. To Councillor Simmons, I'm grateful for the difference between anti-obstruction and anti-bike, and that is very duly noted. And to Councillor Ali to focus on the safety that is number 1. To Councillor Bakhtir, the example that he gave for wheelchairs, to Councillor Verboven for pointing out some of the dangers and the focus in Earls Court especially, and to Councillor Emedenko I'm sorry to hear that St Helens has become a bike dump, and hopefully this will make things different. And to Councillor Hargreaves, thank you for reminding us that not all of us able-bodied users of the pavements are to be thought in this, that wheelchair users also have the same right to use those pavements safely as everybody else. And I would just like to finish by saying that we aim to make this borough greener, safer and fairer, and I believe this motion is a step in that direction. Thank you.
Would those for the motion please show? Are there any abstentions? I declare the motion carried. I've done that. Sorry. It's already almost 9:05. 9:02 to be precise. If we debate the next motion, it will take us beyond 9:30. Most likely. So may I please ask Councillor Thalasitis and Councillor Lowry if they wish to extend the meeting to 9:45 p.m. or would you prefer to defer the motion to the following meeting?
I think I speak for both whips that we're happy to take that motion next time, if we want. Yeah. I said next time.
Would you like to defer or would you like to carry?
Yeah.
Defer. Defer. Okay, that's lovely. Thank you.
Councillor Thalasitis to move and Councillor... Oh no, sorry, no, you don't see that. That's
No, okay.
Councillor Lowry, if you want to say something, speak into your microphone, please.
I think there's another item. You just have to do the appointment. Yes.
Item 15. I invite Councillor Thalasitis to nominate the appointment listed in his name.
I beg to move those appointments.
Sorry, what was that?
That I do indeed move the appointments in my name.
Is the appointment approved? There is no urgent business to bring to the Council's attention. That concludes the business of this evening's meeting of the Council. The next meeting of the Council is the full Council meeting scheduled to be held on 19th of July 2023. Good evening all. Thank you.